What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're doing what if Deku had Shin Jin Woo, sorry if I butchered the name, powers. Now if you don't know who Shin Jin Woo is, he is from a webtoon called Solo Level, and inside this series basically he gets the power of solo leveling, and he will level up based on just doing training One Punch Man style, in essence. So Deku's gonna have the same ability. So we start off with Deku at the age of 4 going to doctors. And the doctor pulls up a sheet, and on the sheet he reads off the diagnosis for Deku's quirk. Yun Izuku Midoriya. And Inko's like, yep, that's him. And the doctor tells Deku he does not have a quirk. And Deku is heartbroken by this. So Deku does not have a quirk. The powers he receives are not quirks. It's more of like a gift bestowed by gods. I don't know. We don't know too much about the origin of the powers. We just know that it is not like oriented with an awakening. He's not reawakened, which is like when you use your quirk for the first time, basically in that universe. So, oh my bad. So Deku goes to school next day and he gets bullied, and everything happens up to the canon events. Bakugo still bullies Deku and everything, and it happens all the way up to the last day of middle school, with the whole entire event with the teacher saying, it's now time for you all to look forward to your futures. Yeah, screw it. And he tosses up the papers. I know you all are gonna go to the hero course anyway. All the children start yelling and using their quirks and everything. And the teacher calms them all down by saying, now y'all know no quirk use is just loud in class. I don't know why I gave him a southern accent. And he basically tells them all that. After this, what happens is that he goes, Bakugo, you're going to UA. And Bakugo's like, yeah, I'm better than all these shitty quirk users. I'm gonna be a #1 hero. I'm gonna be the #1 hero, and all these guys are gonna be like delisting sidekicks. He goes on his rant. Everyone just like is kind of like, used to this by now, but are still pretty annoyed by Bakugo's general attitude towards them. And then the teacher goes through the paper and he goes, Izuku Midoriya, you're also planning on trying to attend UA. And Bakugo instantaneously gets upset by this. And Izuku's like, yeah. And then class lets out. Afterwards, Deku's picking up his notebooks and everything. And Bakugo takes the notebook, looks through it, and sees that his quirk is put in there. Didn't I tell you not to write me in your shitty quirk notebooks? And Deku expresses how Bakugo's quirk is an amazing quirk, and that how he likes to understand the quirks of his friends. And then Bakugo gets kind of upset by this because he doesn't see himself as a friend with Deku, or he's trying to distance himself from Deku. So he blows up the notebook and chucks out the window and says, maybe you should just jump off the roof. You'll get a probably better quirk that time. And Deku somberly just walks out and picks up his notebook, which is burnt to ashes. Well, not burnt to ashes, but it's burnt all over like the anime scene. Afterwards, Deku then, on his way home, walks through a dark alley. And he sees, well, he doesn't see. He hears a sewer grate being opened behind him. But before he can even turn around, the sludge villain jumps on him. Just let me have your body, kid. I didn't know that freak was in town. Deku's sitting there trying to rip the sludge villain off of him, trying anything he can not to suffocate and die. But it's looking like it's gonna be a little bit too late. As Deku slowly starts to lose consciousness and run out of oxygen, a little screen pulls up in front of him, and it's like time stops for a second. It says, "Do you wish to become a player? Becoming a player will heal all injuries and assist you further on." And Deku's just sitting there, and he's thinking, "A player? Is this my quirk?" So Deku says and accepts and goes, "Yes." And afterwards, the scene plays with All Might. Don't worry, because I am here, but Deku's unconscious. And All Might picks up all the pieces of the sludge villain and everything while Deku's still unconscious. And even though Deku did see All Might by that time, he was still unconscious by the time All Might had picked up the sludge villain and took it away. All Might had called some paramedics to come pick up Deku because he knew his time was running out. When Deku woke up in the hospital room, his mom was at his side and crying, saying, Izuku, you're okay, you woke up and everything." And the doctors walk into the room and basically tell her that he was going to be okay, he was just unconscious thanks to lack of oxygen. So after that happens and everything, Deku's left alone for a minute. They go back down to his house and everything. And Deku walks into his room just like flabbergasted at the whole event. He almost just died by a villain. And he also got to see All Might, but he didn't get to actually talk to All Might, which kind of saddens Deku, but he still thought it was amazing that All Might had saved him. And then he sits down on his bed, and out of nowhere a screen pops up in front of him. Now basically when a screen pops up in front for Deku, no one else can see it but Deku himself. He's the only one who can see the screen in front of him. And on its screen it's like, daily training quest, run a 10-kilometer run, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 100 curl-ups, whatever. Or a punishment, or a severe punishment will happen to you. And if you do this, you get +1 and everything. So basically, he gets a stat screen, and it shows him all of his stats and everything. And Deku goes, is this my quirk? You know, Deku's kind of confused, and he sees that his class is, that it's his name and everything, and then underneath it's his class and stuff. And he sees that he has no class, and he's like, oh, well, what's a class? Maybe it's like my classification, like what I am of a hero? And I guess since I don't have it yet, I don't have a class yet. So Deku doesn't think about it and just goes to bed, which kind of runs out the timer for his daily quest. And when Deku wakes up again, he gets the screen popped up, and the screen's like, 1 minute, complete all these tasks, or a severe punishment will be bestowed upon you. And Deku doesn't think anything about it, and he just swats it away. You know, it disappears from sight when Deku swats it away. And Deku's just walking and everything. And then he walks out to the room, says hi to his mom, and then he walks outside to take a deep breath of air in, and gets teleported to a sand, like an area covered in sand. And said, for not completing your daily quest, you will be locked in this area for the next 4 hours. Survive, and you will be able to enter back. And Deku's freaking out. He's like, what? What do you mean I'm locked in here for the next 4 hours? And he sees around, and he just sees that's a desert just circling him. And Deku goes, well, I guess it's not that bad. And as those words always tell, as soon as you say them, it gets worse. And out of nowhere, a giant sand-worm monster creature comes out of the ground, scaring Deku as Deku starts to run away, trying to make sure that he does not get eaten by this giant creature. So as Deku's running away, he's like, is that someone else's quirk? Is someone else here with a quirk? And then he runs as quickly as he can, and he has increased physical endurance, and Deku notices this. He's like, I'd usually be out of energy by now, but I'm still running just fine. And then he pulls up his stats screen, and he sees his stats, and he has 1 in everything currently. And, like, 1 in everything's, like, infinitely stronger. Like, I want to say, like, 3 times stronger than a traditional human's stats. Yeah, Deku's going to be stupidly broken by the time of the entrance exam. Don't worry about that. If you don't like broken Dekus, then you should probably leave this, because Deku gets strong, to say the least. So Deku's just running away at this point, trying to escape this giant worm thing that is chasing him. And Deku survives the 4 hours, and when he gets teleported back, he walks back inside, and his mom's like, "Where did you go? You were gone for 4 whole hours. Where did you go?" And Deku just laughs it off and says, I went for a walk. Sorry for telling you, Mom. Sorry for not telling you." And she's like, "I even tried to contact you. You didn't pick up your phone." And Deku's just nervously laughing, saying, I was walking in the forest, so I had no service." Trying to quickly cover everything up. And his mom just shakes this off as maybe Deku's trying to be more independent. So he's meant to, like, help himself out more, and didn't want help from his mom. So for the next couple of days, Deku starts training, and he can physically see that he is getting way stronger and faster every time he trains. So much so that it's kind of insane. So his stats now, after a week of training, is 7 in everything, which is like strength, agility, dexterity mean durability basically, intelligence, all of that is all now ranked at 7. Which, if 1's about 3 times as strong, 7's like 2% of 1 for all. Like All Might if he was using just 2% throughout Deku's entire body currently. And as Deku notices this, he thinks it's amazing. So he starts to wonder, if I do more training for daily missions, do I get more? So the next day he does 200 and does everything times 2 basically. He does 200 sit-ups, 200 squats, a 20-kilometer run. He does 200 of everything. And after he does all of that, he sees that secret requirement unlocked under the daily theme, the daily missions. And it's another +1 in all of his stats and a full restore. Which, if you don't know what a full restore, basically Deku has an inventory. And inside this inventory, he can craft items out of certain items. And he can also buy items, like swords and stuff. And what he has in his inventory currently is basically a potion that restores him back to peak physical health and stamina. He also has a mana bar as well, so basically think of him as like a video game character currently in an RPG. Even though, basically when he unlocks his class, it changes everything and he basically stops becoming a video game character. It's still there, but it'll be later on. So Deku trains for all the 10 months. And he signs up for the entrance exam. And Deku basically at this point, especially because, Jinwoo, that's just what I'm going to call him. I ain't going to add the Sen Jinwoo point. But Jinwoo basically at 10 months, I think it's fair to say he was faster than All Might. He was insanely fast. Like, we're talking Dragon Ball level, like instant transmission. Like, he was insanely fast. But something happened during 4 months in. So after 4 months, Deku completed his feat and he completed the bonus task as well. So he's insanely strong and quick, but he's not super strong, basically. His speed kept on going up immensely, but his strength just went up at basis. Mainly because he had reached max at that point. So basically right now he doesn't have as much strength as All Might. Like, he's like at 1% current. I don't know. Just, he's not as strong as All Might currently, but he is also really quick. So he's faster than Ida at this point, but he's not faster than All Might, and he's really strong. but he's not as strong as All Might. But he's definitely like stronger than Muscular. So he's stronger than Muscular, but not as strong as All Might. So Deku sees that he was given an item, and this item was a key, and it said, take this key to blah 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 location to enter a dungeon. And Deku thinks, a dungeon? What does that mean? So he tells his mom he's going to be out, and he heads out to this location, which is like a subway area. And he pulls out the key out of his inventory, and people just think it's a like teleportation quirk, and he just had to grab his keys, which I'm pretty sure does count as illegally using the law, like against the law. So let's just say Deku puts his hand in the pocket and takes it out. So people who do know this really don't care because he only took out keys. And Deku walks up and holds out the key to the area, and he walks through it, and everyone around him that he saw disappears. And the atmosphere of the location had changed. In essence, no one knew where Deku went, and basically he became invisible to everyone else. He's technically in a different dimension now. He's not in the same realm as everyone else. Think of it as like he's in limbo, basically, when he enters a dungeon. He's in the middle ground between two dimensions, and this area is flooded with monsters. That will become a key role later. Monsters are very key. So Deku sees this, and he sees quest started, defeat the boss of this E-rank dungeon to receive the ability to do the class test to see what your class is. And he goes, to see what my class is. So Deku quickly runs, and he had already learned how to use knives and stuff at this point to a decent degree. So Deku opens up his inventory and he grabs a knife, and he sees a monster. And basically the system tells him, kill the monster. He can't choose not to kill. Anyone that has murderous intent towards Deku, he has to kill, or he gets killed, basically. He doesn't have a choice. So, yeah, Bakugo might not be making it throughout the entire series. Especially if he goes really bad, and especially villain fights. This is going to get bad. So Deku quickly runs, and he sees a monster, and he quickly takes out the monster, killing it in 2 shots, and sees that he gains experience. Now, he gains experience just by normal training, and it lets him put his skill points to what he wants to put him into. But currently, seeing how he maxed out his skill points, he has like an additional 50 points currently from just leveling up. And it's not like he sees levels of above people's heads and tell them what level they are in, basically. He only has a level. So he sees these monsters, and the monsters do have a little thing above their head. Basically, it's like a dog in front of him, and I'm going to name it Crimson Wolf, okay? And this Crimson Wolf enemy has a green name tag above his head. So Deku notes this and quickly takes it out. So he assumes that green name tags means that it's an easy enemy to compare to his level. So he keeps on taking out Crimson Wolves, and then he goes later on into the dungeon, and a new type of wolf appears. And this one's named Iron Wolf. And Iron Wolf, when he sees it, is a yellow marker. Now Deku actually has to put up a much more of a fight. He has to put a lot more effort into taking out an Iron Wolf compared to if he was taking out a Crimson Wolf. So then Deku keeps on going, and he's just running. And he had taken out about 6 Iron Wolves. And he gets materials from every wolf he takes out. So like Crimson Wolf Fangs and Iron Wolf Fangs. And Deku just has his dagger out, and he's slashing and stabbing all of them. Yeah, Deku's kind of a BA. Just imagine, like, if you ever seen Belle, if you've watched Try Not to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, or whatever it is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Yeah, basically, he's like a better version of Belle with a knife currently. And he's just using acrobatic movements and slicing open the throats of the wolves and the heads and the legs and everything else. So Deku quickly gets to the point where he has defeated enough Iron Wolves that Iron Wolves have become a green rarity enemy. So that means he has leveled up enough to where Iron Wolves are an easy opponent for him to take on. So Deku keeps on running, and he runs into a new type of wolf. And this wolf is a boss wolf. And this wolf is called Fulgur, the silver-faned wolf. Fulgur means thunder, by the way, so he has like a lightning bolt on his side. And Deku sees this, and he sees the name tag above it is red. That means this is a hyper difficult enemy for Deku to fight. So Deku quickly tries to jump in there and attack it. He stabs Silverfang. He stabs Fulgur, but Fulgur just shakes him off. And Deku notices this, and he's starting to freak out a little bit. He's like, at least all the other enemies I could injure. This guy I can't even injure currently. That's insane to him. Because he was able to easily take out hordes of Crimson Wolves, and now he can easily dispatch hordes of Silver Wolves. But now he has Fulgur, the Silver-Fanged Wolf, which he just can't take out. He can't even deal damage to. So Deku looks around, and he sees that there's a pillar above Fulgur. And Deku sees this. And Deku isn't a dumb guy. Like, I think we all can agree. Deku's pretty smart. So Deku quickly takes his knife and chucks it up there, while also calling out a secondary knife and chucking it up there too. So he has two knives into the ceiling. And then, as soon as he does this, Fulgur bites off Deku's arm. Deku screams out in pain and quickly jumps up and kicks both of the knives into the pillar, causing the pillar to topple over on Fulgur, heavily wounding it. Deku quickly drinks a full restore, takes his knife out from the rubble of the pillar, and stabs Fulgur in his open wound, dealing critical damage, finishing off Fulgur. Afterwards, the area starts to change and morph around Deku, and Deku just shows up back again in the same exact spot in the subway station right next to the train. And he sees +1 key. Use it to key for class challenge. And he reads the description. It says, tap the key to use for class challenges. Just so you know, this will take a lot of time. Just as it writes on there. It's something like that. And right underneath it, he reads, Skillstone, Dominator's Touch. And Deku's kind of confused by the Skillstone. He doesn't understand. He's like, Dominator's Touch? What's that? And he reads it, and it says, allow you to basically telekinesis on smaller objects. Use telekinesis on smaller objects. And Deku thinks, wow, so it's basically my mom's quirk, but without any drawbacks. That's amazing. You know, and it seems to be a lot stronger than my mom's quirk, too. So Deku takes it and he puts it in his hand. And it says to crush it inside your hand. So that's what Deku does. He crushes it. And he feels a wave of a new power wash over him. Deku's kind of sad because the dungeon's gone, and it would be amazing if he had this thing while he was in the dungeon. And then he looks at the third item he got. Fulgur's Silver Fang. And it's a dagger. And it reads, a dagger forged of the Fang of Fulgur. When used on an enemy, it has a 10% chance to make the enemy bleed, and a 50% chance to stun the enemy, and a 5% chance to paralyze instead. So basically, leave the enemy stuck, like can't move, for a long extended period of time of 5 minutes. So Deku reads this, and it reads, A-class item. And Deku's like, this is an A-class item? That's amazing. So Deku also gets a 4th item, and the 4th item's called Fulguro's Blood. Drink the blood to gain increased resistance to electrical attacks, as well as to just basic blunt or sharp weaponry. So Deku's like, okay, yeah, I'll drink that. I'll drink that right now. So Deku just pulls it out and he drinks it, but Cop sees him use his ability and walks over to Deku and tells off Deku, saying, you shouldn't use your quirk inside a public location, even if it's just you trying to get a drink. And Deku apologizes to the officer and walks back home. So then, about 3 months later, so this is the 8th month, so 2 months before the entrance exam, Deku tells his mom that he's going to go over and spend the night at Kachan's. And Izuku's mom, Ino, is like, okay, well, I hope you have fun over at Kachan's. And she thinks it's kind of weird because last time she remembered, Bakugo and Deku weren't on the best of terms, but she figured maybe now, after Deku has gotten so much stronger, maybe Bakugo and Deku became friends again. So then Deku, rather than going over to Kachan's, obviously, takes the key out of his inventory and puts it in front of him and twists it, like he's unlocking a door. After doing this, a portal appears in front of him. And it says above the portal, when entered, you cannot leave until you finish the test or you gain a Heartstone. And Deku's like, a Heartstone? I don't know what that is, but I don't plan to leave until I finish the test. So he walks in, and he's in a palace corridor. And he finds this kind of weird. Or he's like at the entrance to a palace. He finds it weird. And then Deku starts walking, and out of nowhere, an armored knight just swings an axe at Deku, which Deku, thanks to his increased agility, blocks and jumps backwards. Then Deku starts to get another axe swinged at him, which Deku also dodges. Deku chucks his knife, Fulguro's Fane, his new knife, at the enemy, using a new technique that he had made by combining Dominator's Touch and just basic knife throwing combat, called Dominator Knife Throw. So when he throws it, he can manipulate where it's going and then pull it back to him afterwards, basically allowing Deku to control where he throws his knives and also bring them back afterwards so he doesn't heavily injure the personnel. So after Deku did this, he then takes out both those knights, and both those knights are counted as B-class enemies. So the classification system goes from E to S, and if an S-class monster ever got out, it could kill basically everyone. Like someone like All Might, like the top 5, would have to come down and take out that enemy. Like all 5 of them. Like we're talking high-end Nomus would be equivalent to an S-class monster. Like, they're insane. And then there's national class monsters, but we'll get onto that later on. And B-class is just like a basic, like if that got out, any hero with a decent amount of training, so like, you know, not like a new hero, but a hero that knows what they're doing could probably take it out. So Deku's already on pro hero level at this point. So Deku just took out 2 of the knights, and from one of the knights he got a piece called Knight's Chestplate, which gives him increased durability as well as increased attack. Deku equips it, and he doesn't like how noisy it is, so he has a feature that allows him to hide and nullify sounds of armor. So basically, the armor's not there, but the effects are still applied. So he has it equipped. He has the chest piece equipped, but the armor is invisible. So if like a knife hit him in the arm, it would still injure the arm, but it has the durability buff and also the attack buff at all times. And also gives them a plus 5% when attacking night-based enemies. So Deku starts walking throughout the castle, taking out multiple knights, and all these knights are like yellow for Deku, so he can't even take on like 5 of them at once. But eventually they start to become green classed enemies. So as he keeps on walking throughout this area, he finds newer types of knights, which are actually just wizards. And the wizards start using spells and stuff, which surprises Deku at first because he hasn't ran into anything with magic. Of course, Fulgur had a resistance to lightning, and his weapons are magic-based at the start, but he has never fought against anything that has magic. After he took all the enemies out, he comes into the throne room. And inside the throne room, a lone red-plated knight sits. The Red Knight stands up, and above his name, in red, is the Red Knight. I can't remember his actual name, so I'm just going to give him Red Knight until Deku does something with him. So Deku and the Red Knight start to fight. And Deku equipped the final piece of Knight gear he has, so he has a full set, and he has the set bonus, do times 3 damage to Knight-style enemies, and resist Knight attacks by 50%. So as soon as that happens, Deku starts fighting the knight, and he throws his dagger, which hits the knight, but he's just armor, so it doesn't actually deal damage to the knight, which Deku then runs and dodges left. Afterwards, he hits the knight physically with a punch, and then the knight gets sent flying, which actually throws the knight off guard because the knight had never fought a strong foe like Deku. Afterwards, Deku pulls the knife back out of the wall because he doesn't want to show that he can just manipulate the pattern of the knife, because he wants to keep that in his secret pocket in case if he needs to use it. So then Deku and the knights brawl goes out, with them trading blows. Deku got hit in the gut by the knight's sword, sending him flying backwards into a pillar. Deku stands up and has to drink a full restore to keep on going. Afterwards, Deku and the knight keep on fighting. The knight gets some decent hits in on Deku, while Deku gets some decent hits in on the knight. Eventually, Deku just decides that he's gonna aim for the knight's head. He doesn't know if anyone's inside of it, but if that's the case, then he apologizes. Deku quickly throws the knife at the knight, but the knight dodges it. Deku, using Dominator's Touch, turned the knife around and hits the guy straight in the back of the head, killing the Red Knight instantly. Deku picks it off the corpse of the Red Knight, and he sees that the Red Knight gives him a, like, when he loots the corpse, it gives him, what did it give him? The Red Knight's dagger, which allows him to use bleeding to a better case scenario. So when an opponent's cut, it has a 50% chance of bleed, as well as it does bonus damage against knight style enemies, so enemies that are in heavy plated armor. So Deku takes this and he pulls it out, and it's an S-class weapon. Even though it's S-class, it doesn't seem too good, but bleed does take 1/8 of a person's health every single time it happens, so it's pretty good. I'm not going to sell it short. So Deku turns around and he reads, "You have cleared the first part of the test. Now we shall be getting the second part of the test. The longer you survive, the more points you accumulate, and the more points you accumulate will go into your class, so you can either tier up your class after it gets selected." Deku's like, cool, now I'm going to get to select my class after I survive for an extended period of time. So all Deku has to do is survive. He has to keep on taking out enemies. And out of nowhere, 3 portals appear at the end of the starting of the throne room. And out come hordes of the knights he was fighting earlier, which are green style enemies now, so Deku can quickly and easily take it out. So Deku throws his 2 knives and using Dominator's touch, quickly weaves them throughout the group of enemies, taking down multiple knights at once, leaving them useless. And then he constantly keeps doing that. Afterwards, he recalls his knives and using a knife, lunges and catches himself on a pillar because he's trying to catch his breath for a bit. Out of nowhere, a fireball swoops past his face, which Deku barely dodges. Afterwards, he sees that there are multiple wizards using Detect, which allows them to instantaneously know where Deku is. Deku thinks he can't have this happen, so Deku has to quickly take out the wizards that are detecting him. But there are knights guarding the wizards, so Deku has to take out the wizards as well as take out the knights. And he's all out of mana because Dominator's Touch, yes, it doesn't cost too much, but Deku has been using it a lot. So even though, yes, he has an impressive mana pool, when he uses it so much, his mana will run out. And that was one of the stats he really didn't care about either, because he didn't have any skills that required mana. So he's more of a physical-based fighter anyway. So Deku quickly hops down with his 2 knives and starts tearing through the horde, quickly slicing and blocking hits from multiple knights at once. And then he kills the first wizard and a portal closes. And Deku's like, oh, I just have to close all the portals then. And that's like the end thing. You can also close the portals and you would get instantaneously ranked up to your grade 2 version of your class. So Deku quickly takes out all the opponents that he can see. Afterwards, he finds the final wizard and kills him, and then finishes up the final couple of knights. So, Deku completes it, and it says, completed. Bonus requirement, closing all the portals. And then it says, your class has been selected based off of your character traits, and also your hidden traits. And Deku thinks, hidden traits? What are hidden traits? But he doesn't have too much time to ponder as he sees his class, and Deku becomes speechless because he never thought that this would have been his class. His class is known as Necromancer. And Deku can't believe it. He's like, Necromancer? Aren't necromancers people who bring things back from the dead? And then it said, class was upgraded thanks to you completing the secret objective. Now your class name is Shadow Monarch. Or it might be Shadow King. I'm pretty sure it's Shadow Monarch. So that's Deku's ability now. Shadow Monarch. And Deku just can't believe this. He can't believe that his ability, his class, has to do with death. Yeah, he did just take out all the enemies here. But he just did what he had to do, right? Deku can't believe this, and he staggers back a little bit, but then he quickly snaps back to his senses. And Deku starts to examine the new skills he has. So he has Shadow Rise. When you walk up to a recently deceased enemy, you can say Arise to bring their shadow out. You have free attempts on any personnel you do it to. So Deku walks up to one of the wizards that he took out earlier, and he says Arise, and out of nowhere, a black, blue, dark blue figure appears over the wizard's dead corpse, which looks like the wizard. And it says above him, Shadow Wizard, rank Knight. And there's a ranking system as well. I'll have to look up the ranking system later. But he's a rank Knight. And Deku just thinks, oh. Okay, so there's ranks to them. And it says you can currently hold 130 shadows. Because that's his mana currently. Every time a shadow is destroyed, it will regenerate unless if you have no mana, and then it will be destroyed and lost forever. So Deku goes over to the strongest personnel here, which is the Red Knight. He walks over to Red Knight and he says, Rise. And it says, Soul Extraction shadow extraction failed. 2 more attempts remaining. And he's like, come on, arise. And it says, shadow extraction failed, 1 attempt remaining. And Deku said, are you still wanting to protect that Keen? Join me. I'll help you. That Keen's not returning anytime soon. Arise! And then a red and black that slowly starts to turn to blue figure stands before him. Shadow extraction successful. Name this shadow. So Deku has to name the shadow. I can't remember the shadow's name. I think it was Argon or Argon, something like that. It's Agor, I'm pretty sure. Agor. So I'm just gonna call him Red Knight. But I will look up at the name to see what it was and change it to that. So he names it Argor, however it is. If you know the name, put it in the comment section down below. And he sees that its rank is general. And he figures out that that's probably the higher rank. And then it says, you are currently leaving in 30 seconds. So Deku quickly reses 20 other knights and the rest of the other 2 wizards that were there before he gets teleported out. And then he tells the shadows all to sink back into his shadow. So Deku then learns how to use his Shadow Monarch abilities and becomes more adjusted to it. Of course, he was thrown off at first, but now he's more okay with his abilities and understands them. And then we get to the UA entrance exam. And that's where I'm going to leave it out for this video. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.